Hey Vsauce, I'm Jake, and in the incredible game The Last of Us, 60% of the global population, 4.25 billion people, more than the entirety of Asia, have suddenly ceased to exist or are just no longer people. And scenarios like this are nothing new. There have been hundreds and hundreds of movies and video games that cover similar events, but could a pandemic like what is depicted in The Last of Us actually happen? We only have to go back 95 years to 1918, near the end of World War I, to witness one of the most disastrous and deadly pandemics in human history, the Spanish flu. This variety of avian influenza killed an estimated 50 to 100 million people, more than 3 times the amount who died in the actual war. And with a worldwide population at the time of 1.85 billion, it wiped out 3 to 5% of the entire planet. And that was only in 1 year. But the flu is a virus that actually exists, and in the fictional The Last of Us, we're dealing with a fungus, an organism that also actually exists. Cordyceps are fungal parasites that infect and take over insects. The most well-known being Ophiocordyceps unilateralis that infects ants, turning them into zombies. A spore from the fungus enters the ant's body, taking over its brain and controlling its movements. Not too long after, the ant finds a perfect spot to die, the fruiting body of the fungus grows out of the ant's head, and a slew of spores are released onto the unsuspecting ant population. It has been known to decimate entire colonies, but luckily it only infects insects, and it's not like a disease can move from one species to another. An estimated 60% of all modern diseases have come from animals, specifically ones that we live in close contact with or have domesticated. From cattle grew measles, tuberculosis, and smallpox. From pigs and birds we have the flu, and from chimpanzees we have AIDS. All of these started out as infections that couldn't be spread to humans, but after years and years of these microbes being around us, they adapted to our biology. But we don't live in close contact with these kind of ants, and most people don't eat ants, so that's good. However, other animals do, and other animals eat those animals, and at some point on this parasitic food chain lies humans. And considering how diseases have been able to mutate and progress from domesticated animals to us, it isn't that crazy to think that a fungal infection whose only reason is to spread and survive could adapt and evolve to lay claim to the top of that food chain. A great example of a microbe's ingenuity is in Jared Diamond's amazing book, Guns, Germs, and Steel. He talks about the bacterial disease typhus and how it was transmitted to people by going from rat fleas to rats to humans. But after a while, typhus figured out a much easier way to infect us, by cutting out the unnecessary carriers and going directly from human body lice to humans. If a fungal parasite like a cordyceps could infect humans as it does in The Last of Us, how long would it take to spread? One of the biggest differences between the Spanish flu in 1918 and a modern-day pandemic is how connected we are. What would have taken 2 weeks to go from New York to Germany by boat can be done in 8 hours by plane. Using the global epidemic and mobility software and some parameters we know from the game, we can create a model and simulate what the transmission and spread would look like. In about 60 days, the fungal parasite would have infected the majority of the planet. And you know things are looking bad when not even Madagascar is safe. But that isn't to say that the governments of the world don't have plans in place. Most governments, in the United States in particular, have strategies for biological threats, counterterrorism, and the one that applies to this situation most, the National Strategy for Pandemic Influenza. In it, their high estimate for fatality domestically is 2 million, or less than 1% the population of the US. This incredibly detailed 233-page document really drives home one main point, and that is sustain infrastructure and mitigate impact to the economy and the functioning of society. A virus or disease or a parasite don't affect power lines or the internet or cars. They affect the people who make those things work. When 60% of the entire population, over 4 billion people, just stop being, when teachers and doctors and mechanics and mailmen vanish, and what we know as society crumbles, all that's left is The Last of Us. And as always, thanks for watching.